Hey folks, it's Tom, your frugal prepper. I'm out here in the garage this morning. I'm going to be testing the knock sensor on this 2012 GMC Yukon Denali. This has the 6.2 liter cam block variable valve timing, or VVT, engine. This has a narrow band knock sensor, so you have to test it a little different than you do a regular old-fashioned knock sensor. So let's do it right now. Okay, so the knock sensors on these engines are a little bit different in that they are very narrow band. They read a very specific frequency of knock. So tapping on them with the hammer like you did in the old days just doesn't work quite as well. And what we have to actually do is back probe this knock sensor, hook it up to the scope, and then we'll run the vehicle out of gas while we're on the throttle a little bit with the brake. So we got to find the knock sensor, back probe it, hook it up to the scope. Then I got to start the car, pull the fuel relay, run around, get in the car, put it in gear, give it a little gas. Hopefully it still has enough fuel pressure, and we can get that event where the engine starts to die, and it'll give us a little knock, and we'll be able to play back the scope and see that. So let's go ahead and get started. And we'll start with just reading the codes out of the computer with the scan tool, and we'll see what it says. Alright, so I got the cable hooked up. Let's power up the scan tool and see what we got. I ran a quick scan on this in the parking lot the other day to see what the codes were. Let me see if I can zoom in on this guy for you. Alright, so here we got two codes stored. We got the knock sensor circuit low voltage stored. Let's see, what's this one? Knock sensor circuit low voltage. This is a permanent code. What I always like to do on these is go ahead and hit my menu button and go to special functions, go down to OEM enhanced, and then it's going to automatically detect it's a 2012 GMC Yukon XL V8 6.2 liter. And so then F. See that? I don't know how well you can see this. We'll see here. And we see it's just got one code in the OEM enhance. And it's got knock sensor circuit low voltage. So let's see if there's any freeze frame data in here. There's special functions. I always like to kind of play around and see, like, here's an all module scan. See if we can read the ABS sensors on this guy. Just curious. Control module power circuit in the ABS. That's interesting. It's got a little code, and it's in the history though, so it should be okay. And then we'll hit the live data button. Let's see what it can pull up. Oh yeah, brake pedal position sensor, steering wheel position, left front wheel speed, right front wheel speed, right wheel speed, left rear wheel speed. Solenoid command, right rear outlet, right rear inlet. So that's pretty sweet. It's not bidirectional, I can't change them or command them. Yaw rate sensor, ECM brake pedal sensor. It's got all kinds of stuff I can monitor on there. I love it. I love the scan tool. For a cheap, non-bidirectional tool, it gives you a lot of information. Anyway, we'll go back here to global. Let's go to global ODB2 and see if we can pull any freeze frame data out of there. I think, is this? Oh, whoops, I accidentally erased them. Hit the wrong button. I thought I was going to live data. Oh well. that's fine. I guess we have to clear the light anyway. So, I never like to erase the code till after I've got a verified fix. But let's go ahead and let's start it up here. See if it comes back. I don't know if we can see on live data. Can we see any knock sensor stuff here? No. Short-term fuel trims, O2, OBS, runtime, command evap, fuel lever, warm-up, DTC, it sends DTC clear, evap BP, Barrow, cats, ECU volts, load value, EQ ratio, ambient, temp, TPS. Not a lot there. Let's see if I can do any OEM live data on this. Sometimes you can and sometimes you can't with this tool. Yeah, live data is not supported for this vehicle. Yep, and that knock sensor goes back. So we got us a bad knock sensor for sure, or a wiring issue. So I want to determine to make sure the knock sensor is actually bad and it's not wiring before we go spend the money on the knock sensor. So I've pulled this up in the Chiltons, and there's 2 knock sensors on this vehicle. The one we're after is going to be knock sensor 1. It's back here by the oil filter, and you know, this is the front of the engine, so this is going to be on the driver's side. And if you have a 327, that's bank 1, or if you only have a single sensor, and a 32 or a 332 is a bank 2, just so that you know. So what we'll do is jack this up, find this wiring, get under here, and go ahead and probably just back probe that and hook it up to the scope and see if we can test it. Alright, so if we take the tire off, I got the camera zoomed in down through there. That's our knock sensor. You can get to it here inside the rear well with a long extension. But I'm going to get under it and slide some back probes in on that guy and see if we can get a reading. Okay, so a couple things. One is it's almost impossible to back probe that knock sensor with the back probes that I have to get in there to it. And these newer cars, I didn't even think about it, they don't have a fuel pump relay up front anymore. It shows it to you in the schematic, but the actual fuel pump relay and fuse is up under the spare tire in the back where the fuel pump control module is. And if you can see, it's all rainy out there, and this big beast hangs halfway out of the garage. I don't want to jack it up, get out there in the rain, taking the tire down, all that, to run it out of fuel. And I have to try to get that to run out of fuel while I'm running the scope, while I'm on the gas with the brake on, while it's up in the air. That'd be a nightmare. So I'm going to take a little different approach. I'm just going to go ahead and pull this knock sensor out. Look, it's $13 or $14 or something for the Wells knock sensor. So I'm fine with just replacing it. But what I'm going to do is we'll pull it out, we'll put it on the scope. I'm just going to tap it with the screwdriver or something and see if we can hit that right frequency and see if it gives us a response. And then we'll get the new knock sensor and we'll do that before we put it in and see what kind of response that gives us. I'm just curious. I'm going to experiment a little bit. Can you test these knock sensors on a scope without putting the vehicle in gear and running it under load and then pulling the fuel? If you have some kind of a scope, can you test them another way? So we'll do that. I'll get this out and we'll show you what we're going to do. Okay, folks, so I've got my knock sensor clamped up in the vise. I got, the probes hooked up here, This is my little cheap parallax oscilloscope that's USB. They don't make them anymore, or this particular one. It goes around to my little USB adapter that plugs into my USB-C for the Mac, and then I got a VirtualBox machine running on the Mac with Windows, and then I've got the scope software in there, and that USB port's mapped through. So you can see we got it set up, and then I'll go ahead and do a screen capture. We'll tap on this and see what we see. Okay, so I've got my scope up and running here in my Windows virtual machine. I've set my volts all about a volt or so a piece here on top and bottom. 1.28 volts, you can see here. So I'm going to tap on this lightly with a small screwdriver, and you can see if I hit it just right and get the right frequency, I can get it to generate a little bit of voltage. It looks kind of like an odd waveform to me, though. I don't think that's quite right. But I just want to see what the old one's doing. And then we'll go get the new one and we'll try that and see what it looks like. I mean, if I compare it to some analog NOx sensors, it's way different there. But it is getting quite a bit of voltage, but it's higher than it is lower. Okay, so I went and got the Duralast sensor, right? And so it says on their website the Duralast is made by Wells. This is the OEM sensor here. It says it's made in Japan on there. I don't know if you can see that. This one also says made in Japan, so I don't know if Wells made the OEM or if it's not a Wells, I don't know. But we're going to go ahead and test it here and see if it puts out more voltage or a different looking waveform, see what happens. Alright, so I've got the new NOx sensor in here, and it's definitely throwing out a much thicker waveform here, and it seems to have some higher peaks. Let me change the sampling to 10 microseconds on this guy. Let's bump it up to a volt. Let's go ahead and go 20 microseconds. Let's see what we got. Can't see it very good there. We can sample at 1 microsecond. Definitely got higher voltages than the other one did. Let's see how high it's actually going. I mean, so clear at the top here. That's 8 volts. Alright, let's go ahead and do a 5 volt division. So now we're getting about right here. It's definitely putting out around 10 volts there. So, I don't think the old one was putting out that much voltage, and it seemed like it was mostly going to the top, very little to the bottom. Or this one's definitely got voltage on the bottom as well. I'll go back down to a 2 volt range. Let's see what we got look like here. Yeah, we're maxing that out. So I think this knock sensor looks like it's performing better. I'll go ahead and hook the old one back up in the same way, and let's take a look at it in the same setting. There was something. See, I'm just not getting very much out of it. I'm getting something once in a while, but very little, and I got to go down to the 500 microvolt to really see much of anything. I mean, that's giving me like 1 or 2 volts essentially. Let's go to the 1 volt scale. I'm just not getting the voltage out of it. But now let me go back to the new one. Here's the new one. And you see this is maxing out. When I get the right frequency, man. It's like pegging out that meter. And if we go to 2 volts, it's still pegging it out. So, I'm happy with that. The old one's putting out barely a volt, and this one, you know, by the time you get from here all the way up to here, where it's pegging out, that's 8 volts, so it's easily hitting 10 volts. So I am happy with that. Let's throw it back in and see what the computer thinks in the car. So as far as getting back in here to this, it helps if you pull this fender liner loose and kind of tuck it up. You can get a little more room. And then I had to, you know, take it off with the giant long extension. Back, you reach clear back in there to the engine, and you can get that bolt out. And then you can get the sensor off and hold it in one hand, and reach in there and get the tab with the screwdriver with your other hand. It's kind of challenging, but it can be done. Be easier with a little longer screwdriver than I have, but I got it. So now we got to torque this down to 18 foot-pounds, so I'm going to grab a torque wrench. Since it's a knock sensor that reads vibration, I think it'd be a good idea to torque this to the actual factory spec. There's 20. We'll go back to 2. That's 18. Alright. Alright. So now, we're just going to have to fire it up and see. The other thing, I'll show you here real quick. Let me lower the camera. So this ride height thing here, I just took the bolt out and pulled that forward. And that way that was out of my way to reach in there. So I'll put that back on and then we'll test it. Somebody's been here before because this hole where this ride height sensor goes is all stripped out. I thought it seemed kind of loose when I took it off. But you tighten the bolt, it just keeps on turning. Keeps on turning. it's all stripped out, man. So what I'm going to do is I got a metric, whatever, by 1.25 nut. That fits it. We'll stick that on the bottom. Basically, thread that sucker in there. Probably somebody was here before and probably tried to put it on there with a air ratchet or something. It's not too tight with it. I don't know. It's a pretty substantial piece of metal. There we go. That's better. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and start it up and we'll see what the computer says. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plug our scan tool in. Now we know from before that when we cleared that code, it came back instantly after one, startup. So I go ahead and see what happens here. So it's got the code in there. Go ahead and hit the menu, special functions, and maybe it's under menu, special functions. There we go. OEM enhanced. Right, and now it identifies it. And yes, that's what it is. No DTCs are presently stored. That's interesting. This scan tool will remember vehicles sometimes under global OBD2. And see, it'll remember these permanent, but the other one's gone. It's weird. I guess we might have to take it out and drive it and get all these sensors to reset, and then to see if it's going to be back in here. I don't think we can see a knock sensor under the live data. We don't. Let's go back to global ODB2 and see if we can see the timing advance. Because that would be a good thing to monitor while we take it for a test drive. Still learning this tool. No, I don't see the timing in here. The timing advance. I think we're going to have to just take her for a drive and let all these monitors run and see what happens. It's weird how it'll remember by the VIN number or whatever that this was a permanent code and like saves it. I can't, when I put it on another vehicle, it clears it out. And I haven't been able to figure out yet how to clear that out of this thing. That's one really goofy thing about this. There's no check engine light, but yet it shows you this permanent code, even if I do a reset. I gotta figure that out about this tool. Alright, let's go. Let me finish getting her back together. We'll take it for a little drive and see how it works. Alright folks, so I took it out, drove it like I stole it for a little bit, then drove it like an old man, drove it like I stole it. All different power ranges, putting along, getting on it. No knock sensor codes came back, no check engine light. A couple of the emissions monitors reset. You know, they're just going to have to drive it for a while to get all the rest of them to set, and then we'll see if they have any more issues. But based on that test on the oscilloscope, where that old one's putting out like a volt or two, and the new one's peaking out at 10 volts, I definitely think that was a bad sensor. And so that answers the question of, can you test those off the vehicle, tapping on them? And I think the answer is clearly yes. So you don't have to worry about pulling the fuel pump relay with the vehicle in drive and somebody hitting the gas and letting it stall out. You might have to do that if you're trying to test it with a multimeter, but as you can see, you really can test them with even just kind of a basic scope. So I'll talk to y'all later. It's Tom, your frugal prepper. Everybody, be happy and be frugal out there.